Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. My name is Terry Lynn. I'm a recovered Al-Anon, and I will be leading this meeting. We want to welcome everyone to our Al-Anon Big Book Recovery meeting. This is a step speaker meeting that meets every Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We will study the 12 steps by using the precise instructions out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous as they relate to us as Al-Anons. Let's get our meeting started. This is the original AA preamble written by the AA Grapevine describing the fellowship in 1940. We study the preamble with an open mind and an open heart to consider how it applies to Al-Anon. This helps us stay focused on the message of recovery the pioneers intended while observing the traditions in action. Through the actions taken based on the instructions of the basic text, we comprehend what the pioneers meant when they described the membership of AA, which is that they worked a program of recovery and they no longer drank. In our case, we no longer obsessed over the alcoholic. Through continuous action and study of these principles, the understanding of the value of the original preamble reveals itself. We ask for your humble consideration of our sincere admiration of the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous. The simple hope is that we of Al-Anon will grow into the same clarity and unity that birthed the original 12-step fellowship, because without them, after all, none of us would be here. The original AA preamble. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol and unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to show that what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit of depending upon and referring all we do to that power, we must at first apply ourselves with some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual, and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have come to know that, as alcoholics, we suffer from a serious disease for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy, which makes us different from other people. It has never been permanently cured by any treatment with which we are familiar. The only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others to recover. An Alcoholics Anonymous member is an alcoholic who, through the application of and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverages in any form. The moment he takes so much as one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other liquid containing alcohol, he automatically loses all status as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to stay sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we can join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who do not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to this simple program. Now, you may like our program or you may not, but the simple fact remains that it works, and we believe is our only chance to recover. There is a vast amount of fun included in the AA fellowship. Some people might be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and a full realization that we must put first things first And with each of us, the first thing is the solution to our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set the tone for this meeting, I ask that we now bow our heads in a few moments of silent prayer and meditation, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, God. Thy will, not mine, be done. Amen. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a big book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it. Follow the directions in it and learn what it means to be an AA. So that is the end of the preamble. It's pretty cool. A sponsor is anyone who has had a psychic change as a result of working the steps and has the willingness to work with others. For those looking for a sponsor to guide them through the steps, please stay tuned and have your pens ready to record phone numbers immediately after the meeting. Each Al-Anon group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying the message to the Al-Anon who still suffers. This is our primary spiritual aim. Our job as a group is to provide people with a place to learn about and work the steps. It has been our experience that working the steps consistently provides us with a better, saner life. We consider all else to be an outside issue. This includes personal problems. The proper venue for sharing such problems is with a sponsor. This is, after all, where real recovery takes place, in working the steps with a sponsor. We are just so glad we are all here, and we are all here because we're not all there. There will be a period of fellowship after the meeting. If you have questions, if you need a sponsor, if you need to check in or get current, or if you want to discuss other literature, please stick around for the fellowship. That would be a better time for these subjects. All right. So, this is the last in a series of 4 step speaker meetings this week, here in July at this time. Today we're wrapping up this month's step speaker series with steps 10 to 12. Next week I will share my Al-Anon story, about, why I came to Al-Anon, what I was like when I came into Al-Anon, what it was like going through the steps, what I'm like now. Today I will be referencing the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, 4th edition. I'll be bopping around in the book quite a bit. If you have a big book and would like to follow along, you can go ahead and grab it. If you don't, one can be downloaded from aa.org, or you can just sit back and listen. Yes, if you're out there and you're an Al-Anon member and you're thinking, oh my God, the Big Book is not conference-approved literature. You're absolutely right. It is not conference-approved literature. I will tell you why we study it and certainly why I study it. One reason is in Tradition 5, it tells me that part of Tradition 5 tells me that I am to encourage and understand my alcoholic relatives. How am I going to do that unless I know about the disease of alcoholism? So I can find out a lot about the disease of alcoholism from reading this book. It's only academic knowledge. I don't have first-hand knowledge because I'm not an alcoholic myself. but I can, as an Al-Anon, educate myself about alcoholism. And, it really does help me treat my alcoholic relatives, in a much more gracious way than I did before I knew anything about it. Another reason I study this book is that it actually contains the concrete, clear-cut directions on how to take those 12 steps. I looked and looked for those clear-cut directions, and personally, I was unable to find them in other 12-step literature that, I'm not saying anything bad about other 12-step literature. What I'm saying is the way they laid out the instructions in this, the original 12-step book, worked for my brain that needed something concrete. So I was very glad to see that. Another reason I read it, there are three really good reasons that I study this book. The other one is that while it tells me a lot about the alcoholic and about what the alcoholic does and why they do it, it also tells me about how the alcoholic thinks. And when I read it, it starts to look very, very familiar. If I can be a little bit honest with myself, I find myself nodding and saying, wow, I don't drink, and yet I think a lot like an alcoholic does. So I find out from studying this book that I have much more in common with my alcoholic relatives than I thought I did. So that kind of puts us on a much more level playing field, right? Instead of being, I'm the good one, they're the bad one. Here we are with the same kind of, abnormal thinking patterns. So there's a plug for the big book as far as Al-Anons go. It has been absolutely invaluable to me. I cannot recommend it enough to Al-Anons. Okay, I'm going to roar through a really quick, do I have time? Yeah, really quick recap of the first 9 steps. How fast can I do that? Step 1, admitted I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. Powerless over alcohol and the alcoholic. Basically what that boils down to is that I'm powerless over other people. And if I start indulging in the obsessing and fixing kind of stuff that I used to do, I really lose control of the amount of that I do. It's a control problem, that first half of step 1. I can tell myself I'm not going to do it, but I'll start it again and then I'll lose control of it again. And if you're out there and you're an Al-Anon like me, I think most Al-Anons can identify with the idea of obsessing around other people. And maybe if you're like me, not just around other alcoholics, but around people in general kind of thing. I was always pretty sure I knew what was best for other people, and I would spend very long periods of time, fine-tuning all my plans for other people in my mind. And then I would do various things to try to educate them about the error of their ways, to try to get them to do things my way. And needless to say, that kind of help was not well received. Sometimes I would have some clarity around the fact that I was doing that and that it was getting me in trouble. So I would resolve to stop, to stay out of their business and, maybe I could stop for a short time. In the end, I couldn't stop at all. But my mind was such that eventually it would talk me into doing it again. I always broke that firm resolution, and I would dive back into that idea that I should be out there, quote unquote, helping other people basically to do things my way. Yeah, not cool for me to think that I should be telling other people what to do, not minding my own business. So that's kind of step one in a bit of a nutshell, very short. Step two, I should grab my little, I've looked at the steps many times, but of course when I'm wanting to talk about them, I'll start forgetting what they are. Came to believe a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. So, if I am firmly convinced that I can't solve this problem that I was just talking about, where I obsess over other people and where I try to fix them and I can't stop doing it even if I really want to, then clearly my own power is insufficient. So perhaps I might want to entertain the idea of, seeking a higher power. And that's all step two is about, is just a little corner of my mind being willing to believe there might be a power greater than myself. And I mean, that wasn't hard for me to do, and not just because I had God in my life. It wasn't hard for me to do because I was so doomed as far as that step one was concerned. If a person knows that they are just so powerless and they can't stop this thing, then step two is kind of a done deal. If you know you're doomed and you really want to stop and clearly your power is insufficient, then step two is, hey, I should get power, right? Step three, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to God as I understood him. So, I used to think step three meant that was when I turned my will and my life over to this higher power, and I didn't know how. And I thought I must be doing something wrong. This wasn't going to work for me. Other people must know something I didn't know. But in fact, my sponsor taught me that all step three is a launching pad into the rest of the steps. It's made a decision to turn my will and my life. So really all it is deciding to carry on in the steps, follow my sponsor's instructions, go to any lengths. Then we have made a searching and fearless moral inventory. That was not a life story and notebooks and a novel and world, War and Peace kind of stuff. That was a really short checklist kind of thing. And again, clear-cut directions in the big book on how to do that and easily comprehensible. I know I did 4 steps in Al-Anon before I got to my present sponsor. And really, they were just so, I don't know what the word is, intangible, like just so spread out that I couldn't put my finger on anything from them, but from the big book I was really able to nail down exactly what my character defects were, and they weren't just some huge array or anything. They boiled down to 5 concrete things, which was really great for my brain. Step 5, admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So when I finished filling out those little worksheets, which didn't take me long, it took me 4 days to do that, as opposed to a 4th step in the past that took me 8 months and notebooks and notebooks. So in the step 5, I shared that stuff with my sponsor, and she helped me see the truth about those 5 broad categories of character defects of mine. And, I could see that, maybe some things that had happened in my life, had been happening because so-and-so had done this and that. I had a real part in it because of these character defects. And it's only me that a higher power can, that I can avail myself of their help with these character defects. I can't say, God, go help so-and-so with their selfishness. All I can do is say, God, help me with my selfishness. You know what I mean? So that's what I did. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So I've just done steps 4 and 5. I've identified my defects of character. Now, step 6 is asking me to be ready to have God remove them. To me, what that meant was being willing to go forth from there, being willing to see those character defects when they popped up instead of going back to victim mode and not seeing my part anymore, going back to figuring poor me and not seeing my, my contribution to whatever my angst was in certain situations. And since I was certainly ready, I did not want to go back to the victim thing anymore. Step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So again, shortcomings, defects, they're all the same. It's the same, different words for the same thing. It was a simple prayer. Asked God to remove my shortcomings. He removes them in his own time. And that's fine. And he removes them. Sometimes I get them back, and sometimes, he takes them away, and sometimes I get them back. But overall, I behave like a very much different person than I used to in the past. Trust me, I really do. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So I made a list of all persons I had harmed when I did my inventory. All the people in my inventory went there, and anybody else I could think of that I had an icky feeling toward, I put on that 8-step harms list. And in step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So in the beginning, my sponsor and I picked one person off that 8-step harms list, and she had me script an amends, write it out. She kind of coached me through how to do that, and she used those clear-cut instructions in the big book on how to do it. It's got a certain form that it's supposed to take. It's not running around saying, I'm sorry, and it's certainly not going to people and saying, I'm sorry, and then being mad that they didn't say, oh, I forgive you. That's not what amends is about. So I went ahead and did my first amends, and immediately after we do our first amends, we jump into step 10, and that's where we're going to be starting today. And I'm not sure if last week I read the 9th step promises. I think I did. So I'm just going to carry on with step 10. Okay. So on page 84 of the big book, there we go. So immediately after the 9th step promises, and if you want to read them yourself, they start at the bottom of page 83, 2 paragraphs. And then the second paragraph on 84 says, this thought brings us, this thought being, all those promises, the 9th step promises. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. I'm just going to read step 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Okay. So the paragraph I'm going to read here contains very clear instructions. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. As we cleaned up the past means we continue to do all those ninth step amends that we still have, because we've only done one of them at this point, one or two of them or something. We carry on immediately with our step 10. We don't wait until we're finished all our ninth step amends before we carry on to our steps 10, 11, and 12. If we did that, some people could have like 500 ninth step amends to do, and they would never get to the end of the steps if they did. So it very clearly tells us we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. That cleaned up the past are our ninth step. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. So this presto changeo thing that we tend to like to, expect from programs sometimes, it's not a thing. It's not an overnight matter. Like this change that comes over us, it's called a psychic change in the doctor's opinion, a change of personality, a different way of reacting to people and reacting to life. It's a slow process, but it is a process, and it's a heck of a lot better for me than staying the way I was back then. It says it should continue for our lifetime. So what I'm looking forward to here for the rest of my life, God willing, is continuing to practice steps 10, 11, and 12 every day for the rest of my life. That's what I do every day, and I have for over 4.5 years now. And I can't say enough about what a difference it has made in my life. So here are the precise instructions on how to do a 10th step. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So remember in step 6, where I was entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character, that's where I said, okay, God, I want to know when these defects pop up. And that's the step 10. Continue to watch for that stuff. Okay? When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. So if something happens in my day and I realize that I'm being dishonest, and I'm going to give you guys some examples, I immediately say, God, please remove my dishonesty. Okay? We discuss them with someone immediately, and my sponsor is that someone. Our sponsor is that someone. And make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. So in the course of needing to do a 10th step, if I owe a person an amends, I again script that amends just like I would do with my 9th step amends. And my sponsor, I don't deliver it until my sponsor okays it. Same deal. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So that second last sentence, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. The way you fulfill a 10th step is to go out and help someone. Okay, and I'm going to be talking about how we help someone toward the end of our meeting here today, because I'm going to be talking about step 12, where we learn how we can help other Al-Anon. So I'm going to talk about a little bit more about this 10th step thing, because if there's anyone out there that doesn't know how to 10th step, it's going to seem kind of incomprehensible. So I'm just going to look at one of my recent ones. Just a second here. I didn't have any yet today. Let me see about yesterday. Oops, oops. Okay. Okay. A couple of days ago. So here's the 10th step. I texted this to my sponsor. I asked God to remove my selfishness and fear. Selfishness is when I'm not getting my own way. That's what I mean by that. And fear is when I'm unhappy about something that I can't change. Okay? So I ask God to remove my selfishness and fear, and then I say what's happened that has caused the angst. Made a stupid mistake with some program stuff, and I'm mad at myself. That's why I'm doing this 10th step. That's why my serenity was wobbly, because I made a mistake and I'm mad at myself, right? And then I say what I did to fulfill that 10th step, what I did to help somebody. I did more program stuff. I helped somebody by doing program stuff. So that's what a 10th step is like. You ask God to remove the defects that popped up. You say what it was that disturbed your serenity. And then sometimes I pop a prayer in there, and I'll just say whatever prayer it is that I used to kind of get me out of that mindset that, you know, that I was in, like fear prayer or, some serenity prayer or, and then at the end, you say what you did to help someone to get out of self, because all of the character defects are based on that self thing that we've got going. Okay? I don't know if I am explaining this very well, but anyways, this paragraph that I just read, those clear-cut directions where it says, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, that's step 4, right? When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. That's step 6 and 7. Then it says we discuss them with someone immediately. That's step 5. And it says make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. That's step 9. Then it says we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. That's step 12. And like I said, I usually pop a prayer in there as well. So really, step 10 is like a super combo of steps 4 to 12. So whenever my serenity gets wobbly, I do a step 10. That is my new solution to life. Instead of biting somebody's head off, I do a 10th step. Instead of, all the things I used to do to express my displeasure or anxiety or resentment or whatever it is, I do a 10th step. I name my character defects. I tell God what happened. I ask him to remove those defects, and I help somebody. I get out of self. And then I tell all of this to my sponsor. Super important. This is what has gotten me free, my new solution to life, right? Instead of, heading into the misery, I give it all to God. And, it may sound weird if you're not used to it, but wow. Like it says in this paragraph, we grow in understanding and effectiveness. We have entered the world of the spirit. And steps 10, 11, and 12 are called the daily disciplines. And it really is a discipline to have to stop in the moment when I've lost my serenity over something and pray about it and, text my sponsor or call my sponsor if I need to and help somebody. It's a discipline that I have developed over time, and it was really hard in the beginning to do it. But wow, is it ever freeing. Holy. So worth it. So I'm going to I'm going to say one more thing. No, I'm going to read the 10th step promises. So this is what you get if you do the daily discipline of 10 steps. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even the alcoholic or anyone, anything or anyone. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested over obsessing over others, or fixing other people. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward others has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. So I'm not white-knuckling it through life, all frustrated, trying to, just not say anything. I'm not setting boundaries. I'm not detaching. I'm not doing all that stuff. I am free. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Imagine being neutral around people, even if people are being annoying as hell. Neutral. We have not even sworn off. I don't make firm resolutions about, okay, I'm just not going to react. I'm just going to stay out of their business. I don't do that anymore. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And we keep in fit spiritual condition, I do, by doing the daily disciplines, steps 10, 11, and 12. So I'm just going to give you a super quick example of something yesterday. I needed to get on the phone with Fido. I don't know if they're U.S. people, and I don't know if you have Fido in the U.S., but it's a phone carrier. And I was on the phone with them for an hour and 50 minutes. And it was a strenuous call. And honestly, in the past, it would have been a very unpleasant experience for them. And the unpleasantness would have been coming from me. And I mean, I would have rather not been on the phone for an hour and 50 minutes, but I was not sitting there seething with anger. I was not even sitting there, honestly, I was neutral the whole time. It was something that just needed to be done. I knew that, this is this person's job. They're doing the best they can. Really, I felt so incredibly grateful that I can behave that way now. Talk about a psychic change, a change of personality, as opposed to shortly after I met my sponsor, and I had already gone through the steps, but I did not yet have much of a psychic change back then. And I was on the phone with Bell Mobile. And the same kind of a scenario, on the phone forever. And, I was not nearly as psychic changed back then as I am now. And I yelled at that person and I was mean and whatever. So, I did a 10th step and I had to do a 10th step amends to that poor person that I dealt with. And my sponsor said, you have to track that person down. And unfortunately, I never was able to track that specific person that I dealt with down. But what a difference. And, you know what? When I behave the way I do now, I generally get what I want because, like people, they want to be helpful to you when you're kind to them, right? Kind and tolerant. So anyways, I'm feeling incredibly grateful about having the ability to behave that way. Okay, the 11th step, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. So this is about prayer and meditation. This whole thing with the steps is about making a connection with a higher power. With some people, it's about finding a higher power in the first place, and making that connection, and then growing that relationship with that higher power. And in order to, expand on a relationship with somebody, you need to put time and effort into it. So this prayer and meditation thing, that's what it is. So prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God. The big book is very clear about how to do it. It gives us paragraphs on what we're supposed to do. So on page 86, it talks about what we're supposed to do in the morning. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. Only the 24 hours ahead. Not, 2 weeks from now, not, 40 years ago when so-and-so was mean to us. Only the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we say a prayer here. We ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed in a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. This thing is all about motives. The problems that were going on in my life all had to do with the fact that my motive was to get my own way. It's just simple as that. My motive with pretty much everything I did was to get my own way. And that's not an attractive person to be around. The next paragraph says, in thinking about our day, we're just thinking. We haven't even gotten out of bed yet. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. Then we relax, we take it easy, we don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. So another part of the daily disciplines this morning, prayer and meditation, regarding that inspiration, intuitive thought, or a decision, I'll give you a simple kind of mundane example. If I'm thinking about, my day, and say I have going to Costco on my calendar. I have to put everything on my calendar because I forget everything. So say I have that on my calendar, I ask God if it's a good idea. Like, what is my motive for going to Costco? Do I really need something at Costco? Or am I going for a dishonest reason and I'm only going, and a self-seeking reason because all I'm wanting is some retail therapy? Like, do I really need to go? So I ask God about that. And I almost always get a real answer to, simple, mundane little questions. I believe that God is interested in everything that's going on with me, not just big things or life-threatening things or anything like that, everything. So that's morning. If anybody has a prayer and and meditation practice and they wonder if what they're doing is okay. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You know, it's one of those things where as long as you're doing it, then it's fine. You know, the only thing that's not fine is if you're not doing it, right? At night, we're supposed to do prayer and meditation as well, and there's a very, very clear paragraph about that. When we retire at night, we constructively, not beating ourselves up, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? This sounds kind of like a 10th step so far. It turns out this is a review of the 10th steps that we did today. So a lot of people get 10th step and 11th step nightly review mixed up. The 11th step nightly review is a review of the 10th steps we did that day. If anybody has any questions about this, I will be leaving my number after the recording is off and happy to help. So were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better today? And usually having to do with program, right? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? And my sponsor taught me to list the stuff that I did to help other Al-Anons under that question. But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, and here's another prayer, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So that's our nightly review. And I send one of these to my sponsor every night, and I have for over 4.5 years now. Okay, so I'm going to pop into the step 12, and I see that I better hustle. So, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we carried this message to others and practiced these principles in all our affairs. So, as far as the steps goes, this is the best and most important part. Now we're considered recovered. And I'm going to say a quick little explanation of that term, recovered. The word recovered is used in the basic text in the big book, being the first 164 pages, 16 times. And what it means is, recovered means is that instead of our go-to thing with respect to alcoholics, their go-to thing when their serenity was wobbly was to drink, right? And once they got recovered, they had a new go-to. They had 10 steps. They can go out and help another alcoholic. They can pray and meditate. That is now their go-to. With us, our go-to was going out and trying to fix other people. And if it didn't work the first time, going out and trying to fix them even harder. Being recovered, we have let go of that stuff. We can do a 10th step when we have the urge to do that. We can pray and meditate about that kind of stuff. Ask God to help us mind our own business. And we can go out there and help other Al-Anons. We can sponsor. We can do what I'm doing right now. We can do a step speaker meeting. We can study the big book. We can't carry a message out of this book unless we know what it says, you know. So we study this book. We can, pop out into our community and educate, doctors and ministers and just anywhere where people like us wind up, rehab centers and just anywhere where people that may be affected by other people's drinking, and of course we're everywhere, because alcoholism affects so many people, right? So anyways, being in a position once you get to the point where you've gotten to steps 10, 11, and 12, a person is now in a position to pass on that knowledge to someone else and therefore start sponsoring. And when I got to that point, my sponsor said to me, you are now going to announce yourself on meetings as a recovered, available sponsor. And I was like, gulp, right? Because I didn't know I didn't know anything, you know. On page 163, it says, so they've just taken a person through the steps here, and he's saying, I am jittery and alone. I couldn't do that, you know. And then the guys that took him through the steps say, but you can. You forget you have just now tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor. And that is absolutely true. That is my experience. Being a sponsor, willingness, just, you know, wanting to follow your sponsor's instructions, wanting to go out there and help other Al-Anons, super important. Patience, not expecting to be perfect at it right away, right? Like, I admit I had trouble with the patience part. And labor, it's hard work. It really is. It's hard work practicing this program. These daily disciplines, steps 10, 11, and 12, they're hard work. And they are so much better than the misery I was living in before. Just incredibly much better. So I am going to go, let me see, I'm going to go to Dr. Bob's Nightmare, I think the last page, where he talks about why he helps other alcoholics, and I do the same. I sponsor Al-Anons for the same reason that he helped other alcoholics. He says, I spend a great deal of time passing on what I learned to others who want and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. Number 1, sense of duty, you know, to pay back the person that passed it on to me. Number 2, it is a pleasure, and it really is. It's a pleasure. 3, because in so doing, I am paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. And 4, because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. So helping other Al-Anons is literally the antidote for me for my natural state of Al-Anon thinking, which is figuring I know better than other people. That's my natural state of being, and it always has been. You know, even as a little girl, I figured I knew better than other people. The only thing that banishes that kind of thinking is going out there and helping somebody. When I call my sponsor and I need to do a 10th step about something, at the end of our conversation, she always says, okay, well, go help somebody. And again, what she means is, you know, call a newcomer, offer to answer questions for them, or, you know, help one of the people you're sponsoring, or go out and put up an Al-Anon poster or whatever. That's what she's talking about. So I think that's it for the Step Speaker series. It has been an honor participating in the meetings this month, guys, and I very much appreciated the opportunity. Thanks to everyone that came. I'm hoping to be helpful by sharing my story next week because it's a 5-week month. And then beginning next month, August 7th, there will be a new step speaker to give her insights into the steps. So our closing, seventh tradition, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This group does not have a payment structure in place and currently has no overhead expenses. If you would like to fulfill Tradition 7, please direct contributions directly to the Al-Anon World Service Office by visiting alanon.org. For questions about this meeting or if you are looking for a sponsor, please send emails to alanonbigbookrecovery@gmail.com, and that's all one word with no hyphen, alanonbigbookrecovery@gmail.com. Recordings can be accessed on YouTube by searching at the @ Al-Anon Step Speaker in the YouTube search box. So you're in the YouTube app, and again, all one word, at Al-Anon Step Speaker. If you are interested in other Al-Anon meetings that follow the Big Book, please visit alanonbigbooksolutiongroup.org. So I'm going to read from the Big Book, page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Now let's have a moment of silence for the Al-Anon who still suffers, followed by the Lord's Prayer, or a prayer of your own choosing, said in silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.